Hello everybody, my name is Kevin, and I just played through the exclusive Dreamcast game Max Steel Covert Missions. And in this video, I'm going to describe it to you and let you know what I liked and didn't like about it. Near the end, I'll also go over what other people have said about the game. So let's head into it. Max Steel is a toy franchise from Mattel that started in the 1990s, though its roots go back more than 2 decades. There have been cartoons, comic books, a 2016 feature film, and it currently has an official website with some free-to-play games on it. From what I can ascertain, the franchise wasn't that popular in the US, but it's really big in Latin America, even to this day. Did any of you have these toys growing up? I hadn't heard of them until now. In this Dreamcast game, Max Steel is a young man with superpowers working for the secret organization Intech. They are trying to take down an evil organization going by the acronym DREAD. Max is kind of like a James Bond. He is sent on various missions to find out about DREAD's plans and to stop them. The game is a mix between Metal Gear Solid and Red Faction. Max can use stealth by distracting guards and avoiding cameras, but most of the time he has to do a full-on assault by kicking, jumping, and shooting everyone. You have 2 superpowers at your disposal: Stealth Mode, which gives you invisibility for about 10 seconds, and Turbo Mode, which makes your punches and kicks stronger for 10 seconds. And sometimes you'll be able to use it to bust a hole in the wall to find hidden rooms. There's no leveling. It's all about gathering items like weapons, life refills, and key cards. You'll need to inspect all the various corners of each stage to get enough of these items to progress. You'll also need to locate switches and computer panels to open up various doors. There's a few puzzles here and there as well. There are 7 different areas for you to go through, which include a research center, an underwater base, and a jungle base. At the end of each of those areas is a boss battle. Interspersed within it all are cutscenes, which drive the storyline and let you know what you need to do next. Now for the opinion part of this review, where I express what I think are the pluses and minuses to this game, based on me fully playing through the game. Let's start with some good things. I'm a big fan of the cover art. He looks like he's going to punch me and shoot me at the same time. They must have gotten one of the animators from the cartoon series to do it. I like that logo as well. All the colors and everything just stand out. There's hardly any dead space at all. The graphics in the game aren't that bad as well. It was developed by Treyarch, who are known for some of their Call of Duty games, but they also did several other Dreamcast games, including the truly awesome looking Draconis Cult of the Worm. Max's character model is huge, and there's some good animation there when he's climbing up the ladder and doing some other things. And what I like about it is he actually looks like an action figure. It may have been on purpose, or it may have been because of the limitations of the hardware, or it might have been both, but I really enjoy that look of it. Just look at his arms right here. I also think they did a good job with some of the scenery, in particular in some of the outdoor areas. When I'm playing Dreamcast games, I like to stand and look around, and this game had plenty of times like that where I just stood there and moved the camera around just to see how things were drawn 22 years ago. They also made some of the scenery destructible just to make it more immersive. Now let's talk about some of the bad things. I'll start off with some minor complaints. The game is not VGA compatible. Some of you will consider that a very important fact. The default brightness isn't bright enough. You will have to brighten it either on your TV or through the in-game settings. I mentioned the scenery looks good, but a lot of it is surrounded by invisible walls, keeping you from interacting with it. But it's a 22-year-old game, so it should be expected. Now here's a bigger grievance. The protagonist, Max, comes off as unlikable, especially during this opening cutscene.
Once we land, you'll disguise yourself as a sanitation worker and drive a dump truck into the junkyard area.
Dump truck? Lame.
We figure that this entrance here will provide the best opportunity for you to... Where's Max?
Sorry, guys. I got a better idea for getting into that place.
So basically, during the mission briefing, he thought it was lame, and he jumped out of an airplane with what looks like a snowboard attached. That's the early 2000s for you. He just comes off as a little bratty, and it shows a little bit in other parts of the game as well. Now, about those cutscenes. Sometimes their mouths move, and sometimes their mouths do not move.
What a pathetic loser!
I'm not too late to stop your vile career.
Those two types of cutscenes just don't mesh well together. It may have been because some cutscenes were pre-rendered and others were made within the game's engine. Regardless, it's very noticeable and very distracting. Another thing about the cutscenes is that sometimes you cannot skip them. Sometimes they play right in front of a boss, and if you get killed by the boss, you have to sit through the cutscene all over again. You can't speed it up either. It was very unenjoyable to have to endure that over and over again. Speaking more about the graphics, the early stages kind of have a depressing look to them. Too much of it is just a bunch of stacked crates and cargo containers. But here's a good thing. Later on in the game, you get much better looking stages, like the cliff area and the jungle areas. They're more wide open and they have a bigger variety of enemies. They have a lot of scenery. The gameplay also improves because you get a sniper gun in those late stages. The frame rate does dip though when there's a very wide open area, but it's still playable. Another good thing about this game is that it's the proper length, at least for me. I was able to beat it within a week without the use of any cheats or hints. It is challenging, but there's no parts of it that were impossible. The bosses, though, are a little bit too easy. You can choose to use more stealth, or you can do a more hands-on approach with explosive devices and stuff like that. Items in your inventory can be toggled using the trigger button, and it worked pretty well. If you're under fire, you can pause the game and toggle through the items there as well. There's also something cool that this game does that I don't see in a lot of other games. If you see some ammo in front of you, and you grab it, it'll only give you what you need, enough to fill up your whole gauge. And it'll leave whatever is remaining on the ground and you can come back to get the rest later. The medkits work the same way. It'll just give you enough to fill your gauge and it'll keep the remaining part there. But one bad thing about the items is that you see the same items over and over again. There's never like a super secret item that gives you a temporary power during a certain part of the game. You see the same things in the first stage that you see in the last stage for the most part. I mentioned earlier how you can punch through some walls and find some hidden rooms, but those rooms have the same items that you see laying around everywhere, so there's no sense of surprise or anything. Using some of the items is also awkward. It's hard to land the grenades because there's so many invisible walls in the game and they tend to bounce off and not go where you want to throw them. You also have to put the items away if you want to climb something, and this is something that new people may have trouble with. Like I did here in the first stage here, I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't climb these crates, and it was because I had an item in my hand. You also can't push buttons on panels if you have something in your hand. That includes a gun, so you're constantly having to put away your gun. It makes it seem realistic, but it's a little bit annoying. Speaking of climbing crates, that is a very awkward movement. You have to be in just the right spot and hit the Y button. The game is also awkward when it comes to stacking boxes, and the jumping is a little awkward as well. You definitely don't want to jump too often because you're never going to land where you want to land. But there are some elements that work pretty well in the game. One of them is the way your gun locks on to the enemies. It mostly works. The little cursor turns red when you have an enemy in range, and you can shoot them from very far away, even with the smaller guns. If you hold down both trigger buttons, there's a first-person mode, which allows you to look around the room, but it also allows you to do some precise shooting. Now here's some more bad things. There's not that much enemy variety. Almost half of them are these Power Ranger dudes, and they all pretty much behave the same way. The green ones are the most powerful and take the most shots to kill. The AI that controls them isn't very smart. Sometimes they get stuck on walls, and instead of running toward me, I catch them running away from me sometimes. But the most funny thing is that you have to dodge cameras in this game, but sometimes when the camera sees you and the alarm goes off, nobody comes. Maybe it's because I've already killed all the enemies in the area, but I'm just not used to that. And sometimes the cameras just shut off, and I'm not sure why.
Say again, Bishop? You've got it into auto refuel mode and it's sequencing right? That's right!
One of the good things about the game is the music. I enjoyed it, but some people may feel differently. I've been playing it throughout this video. However, there is some really bad sound design overall in this game. Just listen to this part.
So choose wisely what you're going to use to activate one of your nanotech abilities. Hold the left trigger down. Then you can press the A button
Notice he's trying to tell me how to do something, but you can't hear him from the sound of the fan. You can actually destroy the panel on the wall and stop the fan, but I didn't know that at this time. This was the first stage. Another thing you'll notice about the sound is how much he moans, especially when he's climbing over crates. I guess he's scraping his knee or something. So what is my overall opinion of Max Steel Covert Missions? I would say it's an average experience. It was dull in some places, but it had good pacing and the difficulty was spot on for me. I was motivated to keep on playing to the end. The things it fails at the most are products of its time, so you can forgive a lot of the negative experiences of it. I recommend the game only to people who like to play a lot of Dreamcast games, and who are looking to play a Dreamcast game that not many other people have played. And I also think fans of the Max Steel franchise would also get something out of this game, though I'm not sure if this game follows the canon of the animated series. With all that in mind, let's see what other people have said about the game. Electronic Gaming Monthly reviewed the game in March 2001, and they said from a visual standpoint the game is absolutely breathtaking. But he goes on to say that the gameplay mechanics are not as good. Now let's go over to Metacritic, and IGN gave it a 37, saying it should be at the bottom of everyone's wish list. Daily Radar gave it a 75. Some of the controls could have used some tweaking, the enemy AI tends to be pretty bland, and overall, you've done most of this before. Now let's get a different perspective. Let's go to YouTube and see what people say in the comments there. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of people who remember the game, but don't remember that it was an actual cartoon series or an action figure series. And there's also people who remember the toy line but didn't realize there was a game. But what I don't see is a lot of opinions about the game. So I think this game got missed by a lot of people, probably due to lack of marketing. So overall, I think I've given you a good picture of what this game is all about. May your games make you happy and smart, and may people respect you for playing them. So long, everybody.